In Unit 5, nonverbal communication in various types was discussed. In the following interview, you will listen to several speakers from different nations sharing their cross-cultural experiences with nonverbal communication. Please describe an experience when you communicated successfully without language.
I have experience communicating with people successfully without being able to speak the other language. This happened here in Taiwan for a period of time. I was living with my friend's family in Neihu, Taipei. I was often home alone with the family's grandmother, who happened to only speak Taiwanese and Japanese. And my Chinese was barely good enough to order noodles at the restaurant at that time. So the way this grandmother and I communicated was like a mime movie. Facial expressions, hand gestures, body movements, and everything, plus languages that the other person did not understand. At first, it was quite awkward, that I did not know her culture and ways to interact properly with her. But she was the kindest elderly woman I had ever met, patient and understanding, and we had no problems whatsoever. When she wanted something, she communicated with her hands and spoke her Taiwanese, and I tried to do the same when I wanted something. For some reason, everything just went well. We just communicated so well and became friends without speaking each other's languages. The fondest memory I have from that time when the whole family got together to play mahjong. Something unique to this culture that I have to try hard to learn. The grandmother would insist that I play with them. I couldn't refuse, and so it happened that I was told how to play mahjong without understanding a single word that my teacher, the grandmother, said to me during that one night. If anything, I learned a few words in Taiwanese.
When communicating without language, asking for food can most of the time have a successful result. When traveling around Southeast Asia, I have had many successful experiences when ordering food at restaurants or paying for things at stores. I believe this is because places such as restaurants and stores tend to have visual aids to assist the customers to make a purchase. Without the use of visual aids, I think it would be very hard to communicate successfully. In the case that there were no visual aids, the best resource would be the use of body language. Sometimes the result wouldn't be exactly what I expected, but at least I could get something similar to what I was asking for. When paying for food or services, the resource that can never be omitted is the display of the amount to be paid on a calculator. Numbers are a universal language, so you don't have to speak the same language in order to communicate successfully. For instance, when I first arrived in Taiwan and went to the local markets to buy fruits and vegetables, I could barely say the names of the things I wanted to buy. Therefore, before getting there, I would prepare a list with the pictures of the fruits and vegetables I wanted to buy, and then I would show it to the vendor or point at the products. Later, the vendor would show me on the calculator the total amount to pay. Most of the time, the system allowed me to get what I was expecting. Only a few times I got something I didn't actually want to buy or got a higher price than I had expected. Without any doubt, technology has clearly made communication without verbal language a much easier task.
Please describe an experience when you failed to communicate well, although language is not the problem.
One example occurred when one of my foreign friends visited my country, Indonesia. She came to my house and met my family. When my parents met her, they were so excited. My mom came to her and asked her out of courtesy questions like, "How are you? Have you eaten?" and so on. At the end, my mom commented that my friend was fat. My friend heard that and she got offended by mom's comment. But my mom did not have any intention of insulting her. In Indonesian culture, it is pretty common to tell someone else he or she is fat or fatter than someone else. It kind of symbolizes that the person is happy or healthy. However, in Western countries such as USA, saying someone is fat in front of that person's face is considered body shaming and is very impolite. Hence, my friend got offended when she heard that. But then I clarified to my friend the real meaning of why we say that in our culture, and luckily she understood. This is one example that culture might affect the meaning of a word and how people interpret the words. Another example is related to nonverbal communication. Once I had a group discussion with my friend from Canada. I was looking for a pencil because I couldn't find it. And my Canadian friend helped me by pointing the pencil using his feet. At first, I actually got offended because in my culture, we point things using our fingers. Using feet to do that is very impolite as well as offensive. In contrast, it was a casual gesture for Westerners to point to things that way. Thus, my friend did that. I told my friend about the issue and he apologized. I fully understood that it was purely miscommunication, but we definitely need to be aware with our body language when we communicate with people from different cultures.
How is physical space arranged similarly or differently in cultures you have experienced?
One thing that has always fascinated me is the way people would arrange their homes. In the United States, it is common to have the outdoors leading straight to the living room where families usually spend time together. The sofa is usually arranged in the middle of the room to occupy most of the space so people can spend their time there. I have also observed this being the case in some of the houses I've seen in Taiwan as well. However, in Finland, that is not at all how it goes. Every Finnish house has a vestibule or an entry room, either small or large. No matter what, they just have to have it. There is of course a reason for this, and it is the less enjoyable Finnish weather. Spring and autumn are muddy, and in the winter snow gets everywhere. So the house has to have a place to prevent it from getting inside. The vestibule is critical for that, because it is also a place where we leave our shoes and coats when we get inside the house. It is always warm inside Finnish houses, so one doesn't need a coat or shoes inside. At least in my opinion, walking in socks is so much more comfortable than in shoes that you have been wearing for the whole day. And there is some walking to do, because Finnish houses can be quite large. We have a lot of space and we gladly build ourselves large houses to live in so that we don't need to be clumped up inside. The living room, almost always without exceptions, includes a fireplace to warm up the room or to just create a comfortable atmosphere.
I was in France for a year. Most classrooms there are locked unless the teacher comes and opens the door with their staff ID card. Classrooms are highly secure because they're so afraid of terrorist attacks happening on campus. On the other hand, although Taiwanese college classrooms can sometimes be locked too, students can easily borrow keys from the department office. At times, doors are just wide open for cleaning. As for public space, universities in Taiwan generally have a larger campus than most French universities. The main campus of the university I went to in Lyon was a combination of several buildings close to each other. So there was no place for any PE class unless we went to the other campus, which is 30 minutes away. However, in Taiwan, especially at NCCU, we have standardized open space for sports lovers and 2 gyms for PE classes to take place. The campus is big enough for lots of extracurricular activities, and students will stay longer on campus than students in France. Regarding dormitories, most Taiwanese dorms are on campus or very close to the main campus. Students who live there are all from the same university, but in France they call those places residence, and usually those are for students with scholarships and international students. It's usually close to the campus, but actually not that close. Students living there come from different universities in that city. There's also no separation of men and women because every room is a single room, and we are self-sufficient with a private kitchen and bathroom inside. What was weird in my case was that we only had 3 washing machines in our residence for 2 buildings of students. The number is far from enough for college dorms in Taiwan.
Please discuss similarities or differences in preferences for color between 2 countries or cultures.
There are a few major ethnic groups in my home country, the Gambia, such as Manjago, Mandinka, Serahule, Akos, and Wolof. They prefer certain colors in important ceremonies like funerals and weddings. Let's start with the sad one. Losing someone is quite painful and often described as dark moments of one's life. The word dark is taken literally, and as such, dark colors in a ceremony represent sadness and solemn moments. Back home in Gambia, traditionally, people attending burial ceremonies usually wear black, and particularly close members of the deceased will continue to wear black for a certain time after the funeral. This is particularly true about the Manjagos. My ancestors were from Ghana, where, according to my parents and uncle, red and black are the main colors for burial rituals. On the other hand, weddings and joyous ceremonies are usually symbolized by golden and bright colors. One such occasion is a baby's christening ceremony. When a baby is born, 7 days later, there is the christening ceremony, which is usually characterized by lots of food, dancing, and all the usual stuff that people do for the celebration. Since there are a number of ethnic groups in the country, there are slight variations in how these are celebrated. The Wolofs are known for throwing elaborate parties and celebrations for this ceremony, and the colors used are mostly bright and golden. A baby's christening ceremony is known as Ngente in Wolof. Here in Taiwan, I've learned from my Taiwanese friends that some colors are preferred over others. I know that the color red means good fortune and is associated with riches. I was also told that during wedding ceremonies, white and black are usually not preferred colors.
How similarly or differently do people from different cultures show their courtesy or friendliness?
In my home country, Guatemala, people express their friendliness by being warm and showing affection. They also tend to talk about personal topics to make the other person feel less distant. When I arrived in Taiwan, I realized people here generally express their friendliness and courtesy in a different manner. Starting from saying hello. In Guatemala, we usually greet with a kiss on the right cheek, even if we don't know the other person yet. However, in Taiwan, that is considered an intrusion of personal space. I gradually learned that Asian people prefer not to show too much physical contact in public. Food is another way in which Asian people express their courtesy and friendship. For instance, the phrase, "Have you eaten yet?" has turned into a way in which Taiwanese people say hello in their language. The importance of food can also be observed when a host offers food to a guest and the guest, as a way of showing politeness, refuses. The host then continues offering food until the guest accepts. This portrays the importance that food has in their way of caring about the other person. Whereas in other Western cultures, after offering food to the guest and this in turn being refused, the host will respect the guest's decision and stop offering food. I have experienced this situation many times. In all of them, I have felt the friendliness and courtesy the Taiwanese people expressed when they offered me food. One clear example was when my parents visited Taiwan for the first time. My yoga teacher, who became a really good friend of mine, was really excited to invite my parents for dinner. She prepared many delicious dishes, too many for us to finish them all. Even though she and my parents couldn't communicate due to language barrier, they felt her courtesy and friendliness in her offerings.
Generally, we smile and talk politely to other people to show respect or friendliness. However, I have encountered some difference across different cultures. In Indonesia, it is very important for you to shake hands with the people you just met to show your respect. But I found out that in Japan and Korea, they do not shake hands that often. Instead, they bow to other people to demonstrate respect. Also, in Indonesia, it is a must to address someone older with a personal title like Sir, Madam, Miss, and so on. When we address our parents, we almost always use Mom and Dad. Similarly, we call elder relative Auntie and Uncle. This is the way we show our respect to older people. In contrast, in some Western cultures, it is more common to call someone directly by their names even with their own parents. This kind of behavior can be considered disrespectful if it takes place in Indonesia. The way we show friendliness in Indonesia is also different than in many Western countries. The majority of Western countries are liberal in the sense that they have freedom of expression. while in Indonesia people are more conservative. Therefore, this also influences the way we exhibit our friendliness. Kissing on the cheek and hugging are very casual greetings in Western countries. This is a whole different story in Indonesia. When it comes to the opposite sex, touching is commonly forbidden, and therefore we do not hug or kiss friends on the cheek, especially our friends of the opposite sex.
Greetings, arrangements of furniture, the use of color, and pointing out directions were some of the experiences the respondents shared. Be aware that sometimes, even when language is not a problem, communication can still break down simply because the mismatch of nonverbal expressions and their interpretation. After hearing the respondents' stories, can you think of an experience that you have had in which nonverbal communication occurred?